Tonight, Election Day is exactly 2 weeks away. Donald Trump and Joe Biden making their last push, focusing on winning votes in battleground states, with Pennsylvania proving to be one of the key states that may decide the 2020 race. So how likely is it to go red or blue? Here's ABC's Trevor Ault.
President Trump has just been impeached.
Americans face the worst downturn since the Great Depression.
Hospitalizations on the rise in 42 states now.
The relentless pace of history-making news the past 4 years has worn at the fabric of the country. But in this rural part of western Pennsylvania, it's almost as though time has stood still.
These colors are crazy up on the hill.
With the help of manufacturing plants, the economy is humming along, and in the midst of a pandemic, this county has had an exceedingly low number of COVID-19 cases. Working-class voters in towns like these helped carry Donald Trump to victory in 2016, the first time a Republican took Pennsylvania since 1988. Wes Crawford was one of those Trump voters, and this year he's voting Trump again.
I think Trump is embraced not because people have a glorified view of Trump as a person, but I think they were hopeful that President Trump would change the status quo in Washington.
Do you think we got that shakeup?
I think we did to some degree. I think a lot of people would have liked to have seen what might have happened with less vitriol and constant fighting.
Crawford says even here in his small hometown of New Bethlehem, they feel that political division. In fact, it's even happening in his own home. His 17-year-old daughter, Abby, is a fan of Joe Biden.
How did that happen, that you started to develop those separate views?
Being on the internet and doing more research and digging into politics more and just getting older, old enough to really understand what's going on, with the president. I think that kind of change has directed me to think differently.
Sure.
I love her dearly, and I am very conservative. For me, it's about principles, and she shares some of those principles, but she doesn't express them the way I do.
Sometimes you have to agree to disagree, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Often?
Yeah. And it's a big house.
I can have the Biden signs in my room and you can have the Fox News downstairs.
The dinner table discourse in the Crawford home might be a preview of the shifting landscape in this key battleground state. And Pennsylvania voters, with their 20 electoral votes, can't simply agree to disagree on November 3rd.
It has one large East Coast city on one side, Philadelphia, one large Midwestern city, Pittsburgh on the other side, and the rest of Pennsylvania is basically small town and rural areas.
The latest polling shows President Trump losing ground in Pennsylvania, with Joe Biden, a Scranton native, up about 6%, though at this time in 2016, Hillary Clinton had a nearly identical lead.
I think this year's election in Pennsylvania is slightly different. One, it's an incumbent running for President Donald Trump. He's no longer the candidate of change. The other difference is Joe Biden was born there, and he's much more popular and rated favorably than Hillary Clinton was. So all those give him a slight advantage.
You might think the bitter mudslinging could turn off the younger generation, but at least here, it seems to have actually motivated kids to get involved in politics. Today, even though Abby isn't old enough to vote for real, she's casting a ballot for Biden, part of a mock presidential election for students at New Bethlehem's Redbank Valley High School.
This is actually the fourth time the Nightline has visited this high school. First time was in 2016. The students nailed it. Donald Trump won overwhelmingly in a landslide.
That's close.
My colleague Terry Moran made that first trip.
Yeah, hi, it's Terry Moran with ABC News.
Today, political ads.
8th grade civics teacher Dr. Joe Harmon, who champions his students' political opinions without providing his own, has been our guide each time.
I want them to know that their voice matters, that they have a responsibility to use their voice in a responsible manner, to provide an educated opinion, and to try to make a difference with that. And the other thing is to be active members of society.
How do you feel as somebody working very carefully to mold these minds as they start to form their political thoughts about the vitriolic tone that we see, both from just political supporters and also from political candidates themselves in modern politics?
The key there is to show that you can be of differences of opinion, but we've got to have civil discourse.
What parts of the state do you think were... The most jarring and obvious difference with Dr. Harmon's class this year is everyone's wearing a mask, something the students had mixed feelings about after coronavirus closed their school in the spring.
I definitely think that if somebody wants to wear a mask, go ahead. I just kind of wish that it wasn't forced on everyone.
When you're finished, go ahead and put it in the metal box.
When it comes time for the 8th graders to vote, it was an even split among these 4.
I voted for Donald Trump. I also voted for Donald Trump. Joe Biden? Joe Biden.
I think there's some parts of the country that would think Trump supporters and Biden supporters can't get along.
Especially at this age, it is not worth losing a friendship over politics, because I just think that that's dumb.
So how do you guys feel about Donald Trump's behavior?
He could be better about the way he says some things, but I think that overall, like, his impact has been pretty positive. Sometimes there are certain things he says and does that maybe he could somewhat work on, but he has followed through, and I think that he did a very good job as president the last 4 years.
The president now, I don't think he's a very good person. And if the Republicans came up with a better person, I think I'd vote for them.
We don't have to agree with the actions. We can't.
In Mr. Gold's 12th grade history classroom, we found some familiar faces behind the masks. We first met many of them as 8th graders.
5 or so years, we're going to look back.
And they tell us quite a lot has changed.
Let's pretend I'm a Hillary person. Would we be able to talk? Would we be able to say, here's what I believe? No. Why not?
This whole class is Trump.
Do you think if I disagreed with you politically, we could have a friendly conversation about politics?
Yes.
Why do you guys think that changed?
Like from going from 8th grade now to us becoming seniors, we've like learned a lot and kind of like what she said, like matured a lot.
Clara, is part of it the fact that you might just be tired of the fighting?
Yes.
Is that a big part of it?
I remember watching the debate a couple weeks ago and just constantly thinking, is this really the best we can do?
What are the big issues for you in this election, Matthew?
I don't think there was much leadership from the federal level regarding the pandemic. And to hear Trump say that it's not a big deal, don't let it rule your life, that terrifies me, quite frankly. My dad is immunocompromised, so I'm really concerned for his health.
What do you think people maybe don't understand about what life is like where you guys live?
For us, guns are a source of fun. They're a hobby. I mean, we get days off to go hunting, but then those in the inner city, they view guns as a source of violence. And to them, there's something to be afraid of.
When it was their turn to vote, there was a clear winner.
Who'd you vote for?
Biden.
Robbie?
Joe Biden.
Aaron?
Biden.
Awesome. Okay. Trump? Biden. Okay.
But this group was decidedly an outlier in the school.
This just in, the results of the 2020 Redbank Valley mock election have been tallied up.
Donald Trump with 370 votes.
Followed by Joe Biden with 56.
Obviously, not very close, and also not very different from 2016.
Whether or not these students predict the president, the winner is going to face a daunting task, uniting a House increasingly divided against itself.
Do you think that the country is capable of working together right now?
I hope so. If we spend all our time defending ourselves from accusations, when do we get to the problem? Just show kindness. Give somebody else the grace that their intentions are good too.
Our thanks to Trevor. For more information on how you can cast your ballot, check out the How to Vote page on 538.com.